What is up, gamers? Alright, we are back with another Duel Masters deck profile. This deck, it has a bit of a history behind it. This was originally going to be a light, water, and dark Hydro Hurricane deck with a bit of Marinomancer mischief, but I ended up cutting it because I kept running into this real writer's block of just the color combination. I didn't have any really strong creatures. My most powerful guy was Legail, Seeker of Skyfire, which is a really crappy, mediocre card that nobody plays. So this deck was originally, when it was featuring water, it had Slash Charger. It was going to be a deck out build as well. When I was trying to fill out my set of Slash Chargers, for whatever reason, there was a guy on eBay selling 1 Slash Charger and 3 Cryptic Totems, so I was like, oh, I need that Slash Charger, and I guess I'll get these cards too, because that's a nice bonus. And I ended up winning that auction, and I got the cards. Anyway, I was really struggling with the deck. I had the Legail. That was my breakthrough of like, oh, here, I have a strong creature that I can, finish a game with. And then I realized he kind of sucks. So eventually I decided to just completely scrap water and play nature instead, because I was looking at my Cryptic Totems and I was like, hey, those are pretty powerful. Those impact the game. That's a good finisher. So I decided to run light, dark, and nature instead. And here's some snapshots of the early builds. They're really, really rough around the edges. You'll see what exactly I'm talking about, because I tried to force certain cards like Mana Nexus, which is just a complete forced meme. But anyway, let's get on to this deck right now. So this is a light nature and dark deck. It's focused around playing a lot of disruption, has a lot of spell synergy and focus. It's primarily built around just playing a lot of removal, a lot of hand destruction, and a lot of resilient creatures that I can just infinitely recycle, and trying to just out advantage my opponent after progressive turns. It's very defensive, it's very focused on just playing the long game and trying to finish the opponent off after they've been completely burnt out of resources. I've had a lot of really fun games with this build. I love these rock decks that are just focused on attrition and endurance, and that is absolutely what this deck is all about. So let's get into the main 40 of what's included here. First up is 4 Essence Elf. This is absolutely key and essential to the strategy. We have a lot of spell cards in here where if they are played even just 1 turn sooner can just be absolutely backbreaking for the opponent. Next, 2 Belix the Explorer. So this guy is really good. He comes in clutch in the late game and is not bad early game or mid game either. He'll help you return a spell card from your mana to your hand and recycle it for some fun. And then next, for the 2-drop creatures, is Bloody Squito. He's mostly here to be darkness mana, and just because he is an above power blocker. So we have a set of Fairy Life, a very amazing ramp card. If you have a single Essence Elf, you can pop multiple of these off in 1 turn and be able to just go up from 3 to 5. Helps me get to my finishers and my main combos a lot earlier, so I like it a lot. It's been very, very reliable and consistent. As for the next card, this is what the deck is all about. It is Cranium Clamp. Look at that. For 4, or if we have an Essence Elf, 3, and if you have 2, you basically pay 2, and your opponent discards 2 cards. Now, playing this on turn 3, either by cost reduction from Essence Elf or just ramping up early enough to be able to play it sooner, it's just backbreaking to take one of these on turn 3. And the ideal setup is you want to play this on turn 3, play another on turn 4, your opponent has nothing in their hand, they just can't do anything, and they're kind of in top deck mode, which is exactly where you want them. And then on turn 5, here's what we do on turn 5. Play Phal Eega. And with this, we can grab any spell card from the graveyard, add it back to the hand, and use and abuse it next turn. So I used to play 2 of these, but I found that 3 is just right, because we want to be spamming spell cards like Cranium Clamp and some other things. And if we're on the receiving end of a beatdown, we can also play this spell card, Morbid Medicine. So this is really insane with Phal Eega. You can come back from any board wipe or any hand nuke, and you can just be able to remount any counterattack. So combo is pretty simple. You will play Morbid Medicine, either target Phal Eega or just grab any creatures you want and recycle them. And then if you have Phal Eega already, or if you grabbed it with the Morbid Medicine, you're just going to summon Phal Eega, grab the Morbid Medicine, and just start digging up more creatures from your graveyard. So from that you get 3 cards, 4 technically from Phal Eega. The advantage from that is just insane. This card is ridiculous. I've won so many games just by being able to pull off this loop and just constantly refill my hand after getting blown out by a Searing Wave or Apocalypse Vice or having my hand destroyed. And my favorite target to revive would be Sky Sword. This card is amazing. You can do 2 things when it's summoned. They're mandatory, but they're so good you want to. So first, you get to charge 1 mana, and then after you get to add 1 shield. This is so good against aggro decks. It's good against any beatdown strategy. I've had so many games where I would just drop like 2 of these and be able to come back, and if my opponent was foolish enough to board wipe, I could just do the Morbid Medicine and Phal Eega combo to grab the 2 that got killed by a burst shot or Searing Wave or whatever, and just play them again on the next turn. 1 Holiaw. Now this is a good card. This is really important for being able to just pull off that OTK no matter what kind of wall the opponent has. And of course, when we talk about shield triggers, you gotta play Terror Pit. Amazing unconditional removal. It can be cost reduced by Essence Elf. It can be retraced with Belix or Phal. It's a shield trigger. It can be added by the Savage Vizier if you're lucky, and I've had a lot of games where I would just set that from the Savage Vizier, from the Sky Sword, and just be able to completely counter their Twin Cannon or any of their beaters by just having this set into my shields, or I can just even hard cast it. I mean, it's such a good card, and having it be cost reduced and being able to just recycle it and spam it infinitely, this is how you grind out your opponent. For the last shield trigger in the deck is Upheaval. This card is insane. What it basically does is you switch your mana zone with your hand. What this means for your opponent is they're gonna get a whole hand of cards back, but they're not gonna have any mana to play it, while I get to play some cards that I didn't get to play because I charged them, or I get to reuse some of my effects. This can be spammed and repeated, and basically this just locks the opponent out of even playing Duel Masters. And 1 copy is enough because some matchups it doesn't do anything. Sometimes it's completely devastating, and there's more than enough ways to repeat this that we don't need extra copies clogging up the deck. It's like Holiaw, where if you're fighting a deck that has no blockers, this is almost completely worthless. And the next card I want to feature is Yuliana, Channeler of Sun. So this is just an absolutely amazing blocker. Cannot be targeted by spells or abilities. For a lot of noobs, this card just completely walls them and stuns them. This forces your opponent to waste their Searing Wave just to get past this. Searing Wave is nothing when you can just grab whatever you got destroyed and then completely repeat and just recycle and just grab everything that was destroyed back. Next up is Mistreus, the Sonic Guardian. So this card is very essential. I used to be running Magris in the original build, but I cut them for Mistreus, which is much better overall. Costs a little bit more, but in exchange, we get to draw a card anytime a creature is summoned. This helps out the deck's main deficiency, which is lack of card draw. Now for the last card of the deck is 4 Cryptic Totems. Check that out. So Cryptic Totem is amazing. It's one of the best finishers in the game. It's so good that even in Europe, they're printing promo versions of it for their independent unofficial tournaments. This is the finisher. This is the boss monster of the deck. Basically, you want to play 1 or 2 of these. You want to have like, you know, a Sky Sword, a Phal Eega, just any like attacker, right? And then you just want to play Holiaw to completely neutralize their blockers. You can just completely clean sweep the opponent. You don't have to worry about their Holiaws or their Terror Pits or any of their stuff like Spiral Gate or Aqua Surfer. How would I rate this deck? I would say that for the offenses, it's not not that aggressive. It doesn't have any speed attackers. It doesn't have very many double breakers. It has 4. It plays a lot of blockers. It's very defensive early on, and the defenses are absolutely amazing. It can survive and outlast many aggressive decks and just completely foil a lot of control decks. And for the speed, it's surprisingly better than you'd think. With Essence Elf and Fairy Life combined, you are able to do a lot more than you would expect. Having the Sky Swords as a sort of 2-for-1 of regaining shields and charging up your mana helps the deck stay alive while also building up resources, as a lot of the 5-cost creatures just naturally flow into Cryptic Totem. If you play Sky Sword on turn 5 and you have a Cryptic Totem in hand, you don't even need to charge on the next turn. You already are at 6 mana. And if you play Mysterious on turn 5 and then Cryptic Totem on turn 6, you're going to draw a card from that, possibly even draw 2 if your opponent summons something on their turn. The whole deck is sort of just focused around flowing into this really good, really value-filled game plan. Strengths of the deck, it's very efficient in resource management and can survive the long game way longer than it has any right to. And this is in part due to the strong spell synergy that allows me to play a lot of good spells at a cheaper cost, recycle spells from the graveyard, or bounce them back for mana. This deck takes advantage of all the most overpowered darkness cards that aren't Slash Charger, although I definitely tried in the older builds. And it has just an amazing recursion engine. It's able to repeat value effects and keep the fight going way longer than the opponent has patience for. I really love what I ended up with. It's a very fun deck. I had a lot of good memories playing this. I think this is not my best deck. That's coming up later, but this is my favorite deck, just as this was like a complete out of nowhere brew. I thought this would be total garbage when I first made it. It was so frustrating to build. I had so many revisions of this. I felt so satisfied when I finally came up with the perfect setup all on my own. So the weakness of this deck is, apart from Mysterious, it really doesn't have a lot of draw power. Morbid Medicine can almost be considered a draw card because you are picking 2 cards out of the graveyard, but it's situational. Without the water cards, you really notice that isn't nearly as consistent as you would like it to be. Anyway, gamers, thank you for coming with me on this wonderful journey. Stay safe and catch you gamers later.